Thank you very much, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here today to share the FireFly story. And well done to Reed Corporate for organising another brilliant event. We do these quite frequently, and can't recommend them highly enough. So look, today I'll be talking about our Green Bay Copper Gold project, and it is one of the standout copper stories on the ASX. And now that we're trading on the TSX, it's also a standout over in Canada as well. We have a high-grade copper resource, and you heard in the opening, keynote address the importance of copper moving forward, and it is one of the key commodities, to really capture the global markets moving forward. And we have a large-scale resource, but we don't just have a large-scale resource. We've got super high-grade resource as well. So we've got nearly 60 million tonnes at a grade of 2% copper equivalent, and when you take into account the average copper mine is less than 1% copper head grade, it really does stand out from a grade perspective. The key thing about this project also is that it's growing as well. We also have our Pickle Crow Gold project. We're looking at options to create shareholder value for that at this point in time, and there will be more news on that coming out in due course. So I thought I'd kick off this presentation by really talking to some of the achievements over the last year, because it has been a phenomenal year for FireFly. It's been a great result from our team, and we did this deal like just over a year ago, so it hasn't been long that we've had this project, but what we've achieved in that year is a real testament to the team, both corporately and the team on the ground over in Canada. We did the deal at 37.5 cents. Our current share price is hovering around the $1 mark, so it probably was one of the most accretive BD transactions in the space in the past year. But the key takeaway from this is that we've done it through drilling. All right, we've done it through resource upgrades. We've done it by reimagining this deposit. And the other key point from this particular slide, and what you'll get out of this presentation today, is that this growth hasn't finished. We've only just begun the journey. This is what we've achieved in the first year, and there's a lot more to come moving forward. What we've got on the screen is not from a historic database. It's not someone else's drilling. These are some of the drill results that we've achieved in the first year of ownership. And, there's some spectacular copper results there. So people that are familiar with copper, these are absolute standouts. We have two styles of mineralisation. One is a high-grade massive sulphide, which is in the upper part of the deposit. And then beneath it, we have this big, broad bulk stringer zone, which is amenable to large-scale mining. And that's, really what's going to drive this project moving forward, along with the extensions to the high grade. So if you look at some of those results from the high grade VMS, we're getting a release we just put out yesterday, 10.7 metres at 12% copper, and that's true thickness. That's not isolated. We also put out 17.3 metres at 7.4% copper. So what we've got in that upper part, it's just like DeGrussa in the early days. Our current resource, we have 6 million tonnes at about just over 4%, but everything we're doing is showing that high-grade zone is still open. And if you think back to DeGrussa and these results, that was a company maker for Sandfire, and we really believe that this is a company maker for us as well. Key difference between us and DeGrussa is we've got this bulk zone underneath it. And one of the results we put out yesterday, 58.2 metres, true thickness at 3.1% copper. And that's following up from an earlier result that we put out was 86.3 metres at 3.7%. They are truly spectacular world-class hits. With our stable, we've already seen Andean, you'll see Cygnus and a few other companies as well. Our philosophy is that there is a direct correlation between the number of drill rigs and creating shareholder value. And, the only way to discover and grow is to drill. Now, we have moved to 5 underground drill rigs and a 6th rig on surface. So we've got 6 rigs turning. So, the amount of value that we're going to generate from that is huge. I challenge you guys to think of any company that's putting out these sort of results on the ASX. And I also challenge you to think of how many companies have 6 drill rigs going. So we're going to be delivering a lot of news flow, a lot of results, and a lot of growth within the next year. The resource upgrade was a huge bonus for us. We, on the back of those drill results that I just showed you, we significantly increased the resource by 42%. And we're now sitting at 60 million tonnes at 2% copper equivalent, and that is huge. But the key takeaway from this slide is that that was at a 1% cutoff, which is fairly conservative, given that a lot of copper mines operate at a head grade of less than 1%. If we were to reduce that cutoff, which the numbers are telling us we should, especially in the current copper price market, it is a far bigger project than what people think. Like, if we dropped it to something like Ernest Henry, which is 0.5% cutoff, all of a sudden we're up around 80 plus million tonnes of copper at still a healthy head grade. So, we're looking at all sorts of options to maximise our value and our MPVs. And there is a far larger scale project here. We're only just cottoning on to how big this project could be. Previously, as I mentioned, we've got the Pickle Crow Gold project, and we did pivot into copper. One of the reasons we pivoted into copper is because we saw a niche on the ASX, and we've also seen that same niche on the TSX. There is a real lack of copper opportunities on there. We've heard in the keynote address, copper, 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 gold, gold, gold. We are uniquely exposed now with this on the ASX. There's not many other companies around that will produce what we will and what we're aiming to produce out of this mine. The other key point I'd make is this is a copper gold ore body, and with all the rhetoric with gold being well over $4,000 Aussie an ounce, we actually have 550,000 ounces of gold in our resource on top of 1 million tonnes of copper. And the gold is rapidly growing as well. So we have exposure to both of the booming commodities in terms of what people are recommending to invest in. We have copper exposure and gold exposure. With that resource upgrade, it puts us into some pretty good company in terms of the global resource numbers. We're now comparable with a company called Foran that a lot of people may not have heard of, but their market cap is 3 times more than ours, and we now have more copper in our deposit than they do. We see that arbitrage closing. We see a re-rate coming for FireFly. We still see there's a lot of value to add. What's amazing is, we now have more copper in our resource than Cobar, right? We're approaching the amount of copper in Ernest Henry, which is one of the great mines in Australia. So we are onto something pretty special with this deposit. Just from a corporate point of view, I won't spend too much time on this. Our market cap currently is about $544 million. But the two things I want you to take away from this slide is we are very well funded. We still have $84.1 million of cash and equivalents in the bank. And two is the amount of institutional support. Our biggest shareholder is one of the premier investors in resources in BlackRock out of London. And the reason they put their money into this is because they see the future for this project, and they back the management team. The management team's pretty well known. I won't spend too much time on this either, but people know Steve, Mike, Kevin Tomlinson, very heavily involved in the Bellevue story. And also we've also got Jesse and Renee. Jesse's based in Toronto as well, and Renee's Melbourne-based, from an exceptional background in terms of her financial diligence in the companies that she's involved in. But we've built mines before. We know how to move things forward. I'll just send you this little video so you can get a feel for what it looks like in Newfoundland. It's a different part of Canada, and it's absolutely spectacular and one of the top jurisdictions to do business in. So as you saw there, we've got a great part of the world to work with, best community, best government support that you could ever hope for. But as I mentioned before, our growth journey's only just begun. It hasn't even scratched the surface of how we're going to add value to this company. And the way we're putting this is what our 5 key value drivers in 2025, a really key strategy to generate growth for our shareholders. The first one, we're going to continue growing this resource. Very important. The ore body is still open. Some of those deeper holes, like that 86 metres at 3.7% copper equivalent, are amongst the deepest holes we've drilled in this deposit. There's more exploration, there's more stuff to be discovered off to the sides. We're going to upgrade this resource. We know that historically the market's valued indicated resources a lot higher than inferred. Currently 40% of our resource is inferred, and we'll be putting a lot of focus into driving value through upgrading the resource. And we'll also be able to include that into our mining studies moving forward. We're in an area that has the potential for new discoveries, and that will be a game changer for us. We've got our surface rig drilling there to really make another discovery close to the mine. All the potential's there. We'll put out some colour on that shortly, but we're seeing some very good results. The scale of this is amazing. There's not many of these scale deposits at that sort of grade in Tier 1 jurisdictions, and it is starting to get the attention of a lot of outside companies as well, and it is a great place to work. We're in the northern part of Newfoundland. We have access to a port. The government support is very strong. We've met with the mines, the minister responsible for mining, we've met with the Premier before, and they all want this project to go ahead, and we have 100% community support. Just in terms of the plan, I hate to quote Donald Trump, but drill, baby, drill. You're probably going to hear that a few times today, but that's the philosophy moving forward. The ore body's still open. We will continue to expand this ore body. In fact, the grade of the ore body is getting better at depth, as you can see from a cross-section through our latest resource. So we're expecting these results to continue. Why am I so confident that we're going to see this ore body continue? Because we're using downhole geophysics, and basically we put a probe down the hole, we charge the ground up full of electricity and see if it's conductive or not, just in a very simple nutshell. And the indications are that this ore body will continue beyond the limit of our current drilling. And, we've proven that. The drill hole release that we put out yesterday, we drilled one of these targets that we'd announced in September, and it categorically proves that the response we're getting in this geophysics is directly correlated to high-grade copper and gold mineralisation. I mentioned before, one of our 5 for 25, the key value drivers is discovery. This is not just a deposit, but it's a whole camp, if you like. So we have 5 other historic producing mines on our ground that haven't had any work done on them since the 1970s. They're only mined shallow, they're only mined to a couple of 100 metres below ground. And the indications from the historic drilling are that those ore bodies continue. So not only will you see resource growth from the main Ming mine, which is our main underground deposit, but you'll see resource growth potentially coming in from discoveries in the shadow of the headframe within 5 kilometres of the mine. And you look at some of those hits historically that were drilled that haven't been followed up. We're seeing 25 metres at over nearly 5 grams gold and 0.5% copper. They are world-class hits. And we believe that we will make discoveries there. We've boosted our exploration team with the appointment of a VP of exploration, who's one of the most renowned geologists in Newfoundland. And we will continue to make discoveries in this area. So look, just moving forward in terms of the news flow for us, as I said before, it's going to be a busy year for us. We've got a lot of moving parts to this. But the key things are those 5 for 25. We're going to really drive value through, extending resources, growing resources, upgrading resources, making new discoveries, and really leveraging that Tier 1 jurisdiction. You can see here we're planning to do more drilling, more resource updates, and then moving towards the mining studies to really demonstrate the cash flow that we have, that we can potentially generate from this deposit. So, big future for FireFly. Watch out for all the news flow. It's going to be very regular. And thank you very much. Any further questions, feel free to come and grab me at the booth later today. Thank you.
Thanks,